Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers. Today I'm looking at this book from Wildy, Simmonds and Hill Publishing. It's The Law of Rights of Light, now in a second edition. It's been written by Jonathan Carras, King's Counsel, and there are technical appendices by Point 2 Surveyors. Excuse me. Now, the book is an important book. It's second edition. The Law of Rights of Light is an important area within easements generally. And what I've given as a title for this book is Most Helpful Practical Advice in Rights of Light Cases for 2024. Now that's what you're getting. It's a slimmish book. It's not a particularly big book. 300 pages, something like that. A short index at the back by page numbering. As I say, the interesting thing is the appendices at the back, which are quite useful because in fact the book itself, when you look at the actual size of the book, almost half of it when I get to it, you've got the form of the area of course itself. You've got the appendices which are starting on page 193, which as you can probably see is basically halfway through the book, and it starts off with quantification of light and its loss. More of that in a minute. At the front of the book you've got the standard front page. Then after that you've got a dedication, which is always important. I don't review books I don't like. There's no point. I like to review books which are helpful for people like myself in practice and for people who are students and generally people who have an interest. Then you've got the contents section running through, starting off with the legal nature of rights. Then you've got, as I say, the appendices at the back, quite useful, with legislation included. Then there's a preface to the very first edition that came out, which is a while ago now, and then a preface to the second edition. And the law is as stated at the 1st of January 2024. And what they're talking about here is they're talking specifically about the technical appendices which are included. Then you've got a list of the figures. There are quite a few of those. Then you've got the table of cases. All the usual stuff is here. Then you've got legislation. And then you've got a little bit of statutory instrument, just to add a bit of spice to it. Then some other materials. Bits and pieces that are quite useful. Then you start off the legal nature of a right of light. Very helpful. You probably remember from your student days what in fact a right of light is, but you've got the standard structure here, paragraph numbering at the sides and footnotes, and a nice lot of footnotes all the way through the publication. As I say, it runs to 300 odd pages. It's a lovely little book for this area of law, and it's an area that I've always been quite interested in because I've had a number of cases involving easements, and normally it's actually right of way more than anything else, but right of light has come in, and this is quite important if it's a very technical argument that's being put forward. Also, of course, do remember that these matters are, when it comes to litigation, quite expensive, so it's useful to know what the arguments are in the event of trying to prevent the actual case going to court and costing the losing side a great deal of money, because certainly the cases I've been involved in are not cheap. Now, as I've said, this is a most useful and practical guide for 2024. And what I say is this: Jonathan Carras, King's Counsel, has established the Law of Rights of Light from Wildy's as the leading specialist textbook in the field of rights of light, and it's used by practitioners, whether it be barristers or solicitors or surveyors, for both advice and potential litigation. Never go to law if you can avoid it, and try to sort these matters out without having to sue. And obviously mediation today is quite a useful way, but pride does come into the issue, and that's the problem, generally speaking. Now, the new edition has been fully revised and been brought up to date to include recent developments in case law and statute law, and that includes section 203 of the Housing and Planning Act 2016, and these cases, Beaumont Business Centres Ltd and Florala Properties Ltd, and Fearn and the Board of Trustees of the Tate Gallery 2023. And I think it goes without saying that commentaries on these new cases are invaluable for practitioners in what is a difficult area. It's a complex area and it's an expensive area if you start litigating. Karras considers how rights can be established, what constitutes an infringement of those rights, and what remedies can be provided for the infringement of those rights. The book, I think, is useful for both those who are relatively new to this area of land law and to more experienced lawyers, and to the unrepresented parties who are seeking a remedy. But as I say, do take this book with a little bit of care, because there's a lot in this subject, as it's in a technical area. And having got into that, let me say that the author sets out how claims may be defended and how rights can be overridden using the mechanism under Section 203 of the Housing and Planning Act 2016. And by setting the law in its wider context, this book, The Law of Rights of Light, comprehensively shows that despite the technicalities which arise, there are no problems with which a competent lawyer cannot grapple, in the words of the author rather. And that sums up the beauty of the publication and many others in the Wildy Handbook series. We were particularly impressed with the advice from the 2 illustrated technical appendices from Point 2 Surveyors. Obviously, it's almost half the book is the appendix, the various bits and pieces, so there's a lot there. And what we're given, which I think is invaluable for practitioners, is information trying to understand the heavier issues in right-to-light litigation, because it does get down to understanding what the issues between the parties are and then trying to come up with some sort of solution. And there can be a lot of problems in this area of law. Now, the first appendix explains how light is measured. The second appendix then sets out how the losses are valued, and both appendices also explain the limits of current methodology, which I think will be of great use to the specialist courts who hear these cases, because do bear in mind that you in this day and age you will be going on the special list for this type of hearing. Now, the new second edition has been described as an essential addition to the shelves of lawyers, surveyors and other property professionals. I've said that a few times now, but it is actually very important. It's a comment that we fully endorse, because the book has wide appeal for both students and unrepresented parties, of which there are many today, wishing to gain a better understanding of this serious and expensive area of English land law. Thank you very much to Jonathan and to Wilders for producing the new edition, and the date of publication is May 2024. Here's the book again, red cover. There's the spine, not very much on that, nothing on the back. Just opening it up in the middle. That gives you an idea. That's one of the figures in the actual appendices, and you can see there's a lot of detail. It's a wall-round diagram, and you've got various other things. This is very important information. I don't want to give too much away with the book, because you need to buy it. It's not an expensive book, but it does give you some idea of how, in fact, measurements of light are gauged. And I think that's very important. I'll just show you the rest of it. You can see that section there, and then you don't get many coloured figures in these books quite often. It's all black and white. But that's Appendix A, and then Appendix B goes on to the valuation. All in all, a very important book. And as I say, very many thanks to everybody involved in the new edition. Good luck. Bye-bye.